Hi, welcome to Surviving a Stroke. My name is Chris, and I'm a stroke survivor of 2011. On my last episode, we talked about the day I had my stroke and what I went through, the struggles of that day, and the mistakes that I made that day. I think if I didn't make those mistakes, the results would have been very, very different. Today, I wanted to talk about okay, so the next day comes, and what do you do? Well, in my particular case, they examined me to see if rehab was possible for me, and they determined it was. One of the things that they do to you to determine if you qualify for rehab is if you can swallow and if you can talk. And if you qualify for those two things, then you have a chance for rehab. And a lot of it depends on what insurance you have. So I was lucky enough that my insurance was willing to pay for a month of rehab for me. And for a lot of people, they have two choices for rehab. I guess, three sources of rehab. You can do rehab in the hospital, you can do rehab in some sort of rest home facility, or there's none. So in my case, the hospital decided they were going to work on rehab with me for a month. So I was sent to the rehab unit at Huntington Hospital. It's on the fourth floor. Um, Essentially, I lived there for a month, had my own room, and every day I basically had 6 hours of therapy. Yeah. When I say therapy, I mean combination of physical therapy, occupational therapy, and speech therapy. He also controlled the food I ate and other things like the responsibility was teaching me how to brush my teeth and how to do basic things like that. Although brushing my teeth, I picked up really quickly because again, I had to switch from being a left-handed person to a right-handed person. So I caught on to that part, brushing my teeth wise, really easily. Some people they don't. So that's one of those things that really depends on what kind of stroke you had. Um, Basically, it's very tiring like after you have a stroke. And one of the things I noticed about myself is that my left side was very cold. It was very sweaty, um, and it's very tingly. And so when I started doing rehab, they start on very basic things. And one of the first things they did is to see if I could stand. And thankfully, I could stand. I couldn't move, but I could stand. So I think one of the first exercises I did in rehab was I held onto the rail, and my physical therapist would help me try to take one step at a time. And I believe it took me about a half hour to walk about 8 steps. And that was about as much as we could accomplish that day. For occupational therapy, a lot of it was moving my arms, making sure my arms didn't go into adhesion. That's one of the big concerns about having a stroke is that if you don't use your arm, the muscle fibers just kind of stiffen up and they don't move anymore. So they did a lot of different things. They taught me how to do basic skills like how to cut things, how to use my hands, how to use my right hand, how to use my left hand. One of the exercises I know we did, and it sounds scary, but it's important. They taught me how to get up from the floor, like if I fell. And they taught me all the techniques for how to do that. And s in some ways, to me, they seem like they're counterintuitive, but like once you start to do it, like, all the techniques they teach you really make a lot of sense. One of the things occupational therapists do with me also is they would take me to the shower and bathe me. And initially, they're using those non-shower wipes, which I thought those were disgusting. I mean, they're just creepy. Then we eventually moved to showers, and one of the things you don't think about until you have a stroke is, oh my God, you depend on so many muscles just to sit up straight. Because I couldn't stand in the shower, I was sitting on a shower bench. So you have to you have to start thinking, okay, we have two sets of muscles in the front and the back. and side and other side. So you have to somehow coordinate all of them to help you to sit up. And it's it's not as easy as it sounds. I mean, it's really hard to do that. Um, at some point in the day, I'd have a meeting with my speech therapist. We practiced talking, we did exercises together. She was super strict. She'd make me turn off my TV. I could have no distractions in the room. Nobody was allowed to visit me during my therapy time. I had really good physical therapists. Anita, I believe she was the main one. She just worked me hard and to make me. And I think I had an advantage because I wanted to get better. I wanted to. My motivation was that I wanted to get back to work. And this was May when my stroke happened. So that meant that essentially I just had to. I had May and part of June, and I had the whole summer to get better before school started, and in late August and September. So I had what, like 2 months to get myself better. So a lot of the exercises they had me do, and one of the ones I personally requested to do was going upstairs. So my classroom was upstairs, and I refused to give up my classroom that was upstairs. So I had to learn how to go up and downstairs. And that school had no elevator. It's not ADA compliant. I hate to say it, but it really wasn't ADA compliant. So I had to learn how to go up and downstairs. I had to learn how to go to the bathroom by myself. Um, and that's a whole funny story all in itself, because it's like the way they make you go to the bathroom is like I had a urinal that hung on my bed, and then when I had to poop, I had to ring the alarm so they can come put me in a wheelchair, roll me to the bathroom to poop. And sometimes they were just really slow with that. And I know my wife just said, you know what, we're going to do it ourselves. And so I had to teach her how to put me in the wheelchair properly and how to take me out of the wheelchair when we got to the bathroom. And it's funny because in the hospital, they don't use toilet paper. They use a towel. So when it's time to wipe you, and this became kind of a funny little thing for us to do. She'd wipe me and then she'd toss it into the hamper where they wash these things. And to me, this seemed totally disgusting, but and that's what you have to do when you're in a hospital. So I did a month. I did a month of this, and I got better, um, which I'm really glad I got better. I was able to walk, essentially first holding onto the rail with a wheelchair right behind me. But eventually, I was able to promote myself up to a hemi walker to walk again very slowly. Then toward the very end of that, we started practicing with a quad cane. So by the time I got to my fourth week, in order to leave the hospital, I had to prove that I can actually survive out there in the world and not depend on the hospital. So I had to be able to show them that I can go to the bathroom, get up, get in my chair, roll over to the bathroom. I had to be able to brush my teeth, which I already accomplished that. I had to be able to get up, get up and down from a wheelchair. I had to be able to walk. Um, and a couple other tasks. And one of the things that I didn't expect to make me do was I had to take an IQ test. And when I took the IQ test, I felt like I was a total dick. And kind of what I did was, because I used to teach academic decathlon, and part of this IQ test was logic puzzles that we used to do in academic decathlon. So she would show me a question, I'd answer it in like in 2 seconds, and she didn't realize that I knew this. I already know how to do these things. So I taught academic decathlon, so she thought I was a little bit obnoxious. But this stuff was easy to me. I passed the first IQ test. I passed the second IQ test, um, and then it became time for me to be released from the hospital. And one of the funny things about being released from the rehab unit is that when you leave, they give you a bunch of parting gifts. So, like, whenever I saw people leaving the hospital, they would have a brand new wheelchair, a brand new cane, uh, brand new commode, and whatever else. I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna get parting gifts. And then when the time came for me to be released from the hospital, I didn't have a wheelchair. They gave me they call it a Hemi Walker cane and a commode. That was it. So I was sad that I didn't get all the party gifts other people got, but I was glad to get out of the hospital. And it's sort of weird if you live in a hospital for a month, if anybody's ever done that before, you kind of get used to that. That becomes your home. It's like the day I left the hospital, it was weird. It's like it felt like I was leaving home. And and when I went home, it was the dogs were happy to see me, but it's like a weird adjustment to go from hospital living to being at home. One of the things that I hated about the hospital was that there's no privacy. The doors are open, people just walk in and out, and there. If you think you're gonna have privacy, you really don't. At all times of the day and night, there's somebody in there doing something. The one thing I'm happy about from my hospital adventure and my stroke adventure is that I reconnected with a bunch of my cousins I haven't seen for years. So they came to visit me in the hospital. We exchanged numbers, so I reconnected with my cousins. One of the nice thing, I think I mentioned this in my last episode, is that because I was a teacher, I was really supported by all my students that came to visit me. So I had visitors pretty much throughout the late afternoon. So I know that I was in really good spirits. Um, the sad thing about the rehab unit is that there's a lot of people that have no family, or the family doesn't want to come see them or support them. So you see a lot of people just sitting in their wheelchair by their door, just watching people go by. So it's really kind of a sad experience. And the thing I told myself the day I left the hospital is I'm gonna come back and help, because it really bothered me to see that. So um, I'm going to end this episode right now, but the next episode, we're going to talk about adjusting to going home from spending a month in rehab. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure to subscribe and like. And thank you so much for listening.